Previously, we explored the complete project architecture of our AI-powered MERN Stack application, like how I planned out this project architecture itself, and then the importance of it, followed by how our tech stack was going to be used for this project, and as well as how the entire database design was going to be implemented. In this video, we are finally going to start building the actual project. And by the end of this video, we will have built this demo app page with proper styling and routes. So with that, let's begin with the front end. Now we will be using React for this front end part of our application. And I have actually created a new folder for this known as AI Finance Tracker. You can just create this folder wherever you want. Now in here, I'm creating a folder called front end and another folder called backend. With front end selected, let's open a terminal. And this is where we'll be installing our React project into the front end part. Let's use create Vite and make sure to add this at 5 because we'll be installing the version from version 5. To install it on the current directory, just give it dot, and then from here you can select what we want. In here we are going to choose React, and it will be based on JavaScript, and that is it. So we can now open this folder and you can see all these files have been installed. Now let's install all the packages. Before that, let me just show you the React version we will be working with. So we will be working with React 18.3.1. Same goes for the React DOM, and the Vite version will be 5.4.10. Just make sure to try to follow these same versions, because sometimes if you go to a higher or a lower version, some parts or features of this application may or may not work for you. So if you're experienced, yeah, you can go for it. But if you're not, try to stick to this one. So yeah, let's install the packages. You'll have to type npm install and click enter. We'll just give it a few seconds. And now let's quickly run our application and see how it looks like. So for that, let's type the command npm run dev and press enter. Now we can find the application in this given URL. And this is what our current page looks like. It just says count is 0. You can just click this to see how it works. This is the predefined template we get from Vite for our React application. Now this means our application is now functional. So next, let's remove some files that are not necessary for our application. Let me minimize this terminal for a moment. So the files we won't be needing for this application are, so in the assets folder, we won't be needing this one. And we won't need this file. As for index.css, just remove all these CSS because we won't be writing any CSS on this application. It comes predefined. And lastly, we need to update our title. Let's name it as AI Finance Tracker, which is our application's name. Now let's quickly install the next most important package, which would be Tailwind CSS. Let me clear the terminal. So this will be the command for installing Tailwind CSS on our application. And I'll explain what Tailwind CSS will do in a short while. Let's first configure this. And let's first go to the Tailwind page so that I can show you what this really does. So this is the page for Tailwind CSS. And from here, we need to go to the doc section. And from doc, we have to select using Vite. And then it will just give us instructions on how to install Tailwind CSS. So creating project part is already done. And we just now did this part. Now let's configure this to our application. Now to configure this, we need to go to this file called vite.config. It shows here as TS, but the file we will be using is JS because we are working on JavaScript and not TypeScript. So let me locate that file. It's in here. Let me just copy and paste this configuration. You can just have a look at it. Make sure to update this file as I'm showing you here. And then once that is done, we need to go to index.css and then type this command in there. And we are done. We have configured Tailwind CSS for our application. Now let me show you what Tailwind is and how we are going to use it. So I got this image from on a website called planflow.dev. So basically, Tailwind is a utility-first CSS framework that can be used to style elements directly on our HTML. And when I say utility first, It is an approach. Now this approach provides low-level utility classes instead of pre-styled components, like using small reusable classes. So what that all means is, usually when we work on writing CSS for applications, this is how we normally would create our application, right? You would have the HTML file, and then we'll create separate CSS files as shown in here. And if you think about it, we would usually, to style a component, so to style an element, we would create a class. We would give that class name on that HTML element, and then we would create a style sheet, or sometimes we create separate style sheets, or sometimes we just create one main big style sheet, and then we define that class name and then give it values, key and value pairs. So when we do it like that, it actually takes us a lot more time than we think, right? So in this case, they are showing us that to style two classes, it takes 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, around total of 30 minutes. But it says we write CSS faster with Tailwind by not writing any CSS. So how would that work is, again, the same thing. We have the HTML file here and Tailwind CSS, which is our application. We have just installed and configured Tailwind CSS. So in here, what we do is we write the HTML, and to write CSS classes, the only difference is we do not create a style sheet, or we just maintain one big style sheet. No, as well. These classes, class 1 and class 2, they come from Tailwind itself. Now these are called utility classes. So what we do is, we don't style any of it. We just take the classes predefined from Tailwind. We just use it directly on our application. Now this way it takes 0 minutes to create these classes. Why? Because it comes predefined. It's more like a drag and drop feature. We just need to specify the class names on our HTML. I'll show you how we can do that in a bit. But now let's just take a look at what are these classes and what can we do with them. Now we can go here and we can find this video link. It says nerdcare/Tailwind Cheat. I'm going to show you what these utility classes actually are. Now let's say we want to add a flexbox. So what we can do is, we can just type here as flex, and it would automatically search its let's say its database. So it would search for flex, and it sees two options. One is for the layout, and then it has a separate one for the flexbox itself. So if you are setting a flexbox in CSS, we have to give certain keys and value pairs, a couple of them. But with Tailwind CSS, we just need to give this value dot flex, and just by giving this, it will make our component or the HTML element into a flexbox container. And then we also have padding, for instance. We can set paddings using this. Like P2 would give us 0.5 rams of padding, which is around 8 pixels. A P5 would give us 20 pixels. We don't need to mention this 28, 1.75. We don't need to do any of that. We just need to pass P7, P8 or P10 or P12, whatever it is that we want. That is used for padding. And for margin, we use a very similar principle. M0, M1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically, when you add this, if you say M of 7, it will add a margin of 7 to all 4 sides of that container. So remember that. If you want to add separately, we'll have to give them, like if you want to only add margin to the top, you have to say it as MT4, or if you want to add it to the bottom, you need to type MB4, right? Like I said, instead of writing custom CSS files, you can compose your own designs by combining these utility classes. Now let me show you how we can actually work with this. Now we have our main file here. In this main file, we have our app file, which is like the main, or the root, let's call it the root component. Now there are a couple of ways we can create this application. We can completely eliminate this app and just give all the routes right here on this file. But I usually prefer to create an app file and then provide all the routes on that. Now what are routes? I'll explain them later. So let's go to this app. Now as you can see, we already have some information here. Now this is what you saw when we first launched our app live. Like you saw me clicking that count option button. So that interface came from this file. Now we are gonna modify this. So how we do that is, we just have to do some adjustments here. So first of all, we won't be needing these two imports. We'll need the useState variable, and we won't be needing the app.css as well. We will need this one. Let's remove these. Let's actually create an h1 element. Let's call it the demo page. And let's create another div below that and give it a class name. You can just type in class name and it will give you these options. And you in here, you pass the utility class name, which is Tailwind. So in this case, I want to give this margin of 5. Now inside that, let us push this down here. And yeah, we can just get rid of this one. And we'll just give this a class name of text3xl. Now text3xl means it refers to the font size. And we'll also make the font bold. We'll give it an underline and MB6, which means margin bottom of 6. You can see it here, right? And by the way, I forgot to mention, I see these auto completion text because I have installed an extension on my system. Let me quickly show you what this extension is. So this is the name of that extension. It's called Tailwind CSS Intelligence. I have already installed it. You can just search this from here by going to the extensions tab. Find this one. It's the one with over 12 million downloads. So there may be a couple of it, but you should go for this one. Just click install and it should give you these auto completion. Now, since I'm using auto completions, I don't need to go back to the website and have a look time and time again. All right, let's just move on. Let's create another div here. We'll make it a flex container, a flex column with items start and a space of y sized 4, which this basically means the margin block start. I will show you what this is in a bit. And then another div. It is also of type flex. It has items center and then a space of x. And inside that, we will be pushing this button and we won't be needing that. Now on this button, we just need to make a few changes here. First of all, let's give this button a class name of border px4. px4 means padding of 4 to left and right. And then in here, we do on click set count equals count plus 1. Now this is a button that can be used to increment values. So if we are having an increment, we also have a decrement, which is minus the value. So in here, instead of plus, we put here minus. And then in here, we will be showing the count by passing it down like this. And then we'll just give it a class name of text XL, which is the font size, whereby the font is semi-bold. Let's make this a little bit bold. Now let's check how this looks like. Okay, I just made a quick modification here with count. We just label it as count and then it shows down here. And then everything else is pretty much the same. Now let's check how this looks like. And this is what the application looks like right now. We have plus, we have minus. I just removed those increment and decrement text description. It just didn't seem necessary. So this is what our application looks like with Tailwind CSS. We now have a React app styled with Tailwind CSS. Leave a like if you made it this far and make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon because in the next video, we'll integrate ShatCN UI plus React Router DOM to get our routings configured. See you on the next one. Bye bye.